Okay, so you've reached out about PID, pelvic inflammatory disease,
Right.
and specifically how it connects to like overall vaginal health.
Right.
And that's what we're going to kind of like unpack together today.
Yeah.
And we're going to really try to, look at the most important stuff from all this information you sent
Absolutely.
to try to help you understand, like, how does PID actually make a difference in your vaginal health?
Mm-hmm.
And what are some things that maybe you can do about it?
Yeah.
So we'll look at, like, that link between PID and vaginal health, and then we'll kind of dive into this whole world of the vaginal microbiome, which is
Fascinating stuff.
it is really fascinating. And then we'll also talk about this product, Balance Complex, and later we'll also touch on this website, vaginalquiz.com. That's vaginalquiz.com.
Right.
Just so you know, we won't be talking about any discounts or anything for that.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, while a lot of people think of PID as something that's going on with, like, your uterus and fallopian tubes, it can really have, like, a bigger impact. It's not just limited to those areas.
Not at all.
So to get us going, like, what is PID and how does it start to affect vaginal health? Like, what's that first domino?
Yeah. So the big thing to remember about PID is that it's a serious condition. And basically what's happening is your reproductive organs, and we're talking the uterus, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, all of that, they get inflamed.
Mm-hmm.
And this usually starts when bacteria, often from an untreated STI like chlamydia or gonorrhea, they sort of travel upwards from the vagina or the cervix.
Okay.
And that's what sets off this whole inflammatory process. And sadly, it can lead to some, pretty serious damage.
So it's like there's an initial thing that happens, but then it creates kind of a pathway for a bigger issue to develop.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you mentioned how it's not just about those kind of upper organs.
Yeah.
So what's something that people might be surprised by in terms of how PID can affect vaginal health?
Well, the key thing to understand here is that when your body's busy fighting a big inflammatory response up in those reproductive organs, it can actually disrupt the balance, like the very delicate balance in the vagina itself.
Right.
And that's where the vaginal microbiome comes into play. It's this whole, like, community of microorganisms that live there.
Mm-hmm.
And PID can throw that balance off, and it weakens your local defenses down there in the vagina. Kind of like if you think of it like a big event happening in one part of a city,
Right.
it can definitely have ripple effects in other neighborhoods.
Right.
So yeah, the main infection might be in those reproductive organs, but its effects, they definitely reach your overall vaginal health.
Makes sense. Like the body's resources are just kind of pulled in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
So aside from the stuff we usually hear about with PID, like pain and potential problems of getting pregnant,
Yeah.
what are some other risks that maybe don't immediately come to mind when we think about vaginal health?
Right. So beyond those well-known risks, like the chronic pelvic pain, the potential for infertility, or the increased risk of ectopic pregnancy, PID can actually make it easier for other vaginal health problems to crop up.
Oh.
Because it messes with that natural balance of microbes, and it can impact your local immune response down there. You might end up more prone to getting recurring infections. So it's really important to look at this in a holistic way. It's not just about treating the initial infection, but also actively trying to restore that balance and help your body's defenses.
Right. So the PID is the initial problem,
Mm-hmm.
but then it kind of kicks off this whole cascade of things in terms of vaginal health.
Exactly.
So you mentioned the vaginal microbiome a few times. What's the main connection there?
Well, the fascinating thing is that your vaginal microbiome is so important. When it's healthy, it's mainly made up of these lactobacillus bacteria.
Okay.
They're the good guys that help keep things slightly acidic down there, usually between a pH of 3.8 and 4.5.
Mm.
And that acidity acts like this natural barrier against anything harmful. But when you get those PID-related bacteria in the mix, they can really throw that balance off.
Right.
The lactobacillus, their numbers can drop, the pH can go up, become less acidic,
Right.
and that basically opens the door for those secondary infections to move in.
Right. Like BV.
Exactly. Bacterial vaginosis or BV,
Right.
yeast infections, things like that. They can start to thrive because the environment's not as hostile to them.
It's like the first line of defense is kind of taken down.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you also mentioned chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
What happens because of that?
So the inflammation that PID causes in the reproductive tract, well, it doesn't always just stay up there.
Right.
It can spread down to the vaginal tissues, too.
Okay.
And when that happens, it can actually make the lining of the vagina weaker more easily irritated, and again, more susceptible to those secondary infections.
So it's like this ongoing thing, like it's constantly irritated down there.
Yeah, it's like this underlying irritation that makes everything more sensitive and less able to bounce back.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really seems like, one problem just leads to a bunch of other ones.
It can, unfortunately.
You talked about an increased risk of secondary infections, too. Can you explain why that happens?
Of course. So when you've got those harmful bacteria hanging around from the PID and your local immune system in the vagina is kind of overwhelmed,
Right.
it creates this perfect storm for other infections to take hold. You become more susceptible not only to BV and yeast infections, but also things like recurring UTIs, those urinary tract infections, and other opportunistic infections. It's almost like your body's defenses are distracted, so it's easier for these other invaders to get in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like your immune system is busy dealing with that first problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't have as much energy to fight off other things.
Exactly.
So does PID have any longer-term effects on vaginal health beyond those infections?
It can, unfortunately. So PID can sometimes lead to scarring and blockages in the reproductive tract, and that can actually mess with your hormonal balance.
Oh, wow.
And we know that hormones are really important for maintaining healthy vaginal tissue, making sure there's enough lubrication, and just overall vaginal health. So even after the initial PID infection is treated, those lingering effects can stick around and cause problems.
That's crazy how connected everything is in that part of the body.
It really is.
So knowing that PID can impact vaginal health in all these ways, what does that tell us about how to deal with it?
Well, it really highlights how important it is to actively support a healthy vaginal environment. That becomes a crucial part of recovering from PID and also preventing future complications. When you have a balanced vaginal microbiome, it acts like this natural shield against those harmful microbes. It helps to keep inflammation down, and it even helps the tissues heal. So it's not just about treating the PID, it's about taking care of that whole vaginal ecosystem.
It's kind of a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of the best ways to support vaginal health when you're also dealing with PID?
Well, there are a few key things you can do. The first, and probably the most important, is to work on restoring and maintaining a healthy balance of those microbes. And that's where probiotics can be really helpful.
Okay.
Specific strains like Lactobacillus acidophilus, L. rhamnosus, L. reuteri, L. plantarum, and B. coagulans. These can help bring back the good bacteria, reestablish that healthy acidic environment, and basically make it less welcoming for the bad guys.
Probiotics, we hear a lot about those.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of attention.
So what else can people do to help their vaginal health?
Well, another important thing is to bring down inflammation.
Okay.
And there are some natural ingredients that can actually soothe irritated tissues and help your body heal.
Like what?
Things like aloe vera and reishi mushroom, those are good examples.
Okay. And what about the body's ability to recover and stay healthy in general?
Right. So that's where boosting your immune system comes in. When your immune system is strong, it can fight off the PID more effectively and prevent future infections.
Makes sense.
And certain nutrients can help with that, like arabinogalactin and reishi mushroom. That's a powerful adaptogen, which means it helps your body handle stress and stay balanced. That can really help support a healthy immune system.
So it's like the good bacteria calming things down and then strengthening your body's defenses.
Exactly.
Is there anything else people should be thinking about?
Yeah, protecting yourself against those secondary infections we talked about is also really important. Natural antimicrobials can be helpful for that. Ingredients like oregano leaf extract and caprylic acid, these can help lower the risk of those extra infections without messing with the good bacteria.
Yeah.
Caprylic acid, in particular, is known for its antifungal properties.
So this brings us back to that product we mentioned at the beginning, Balance Complex.
Yeah.
How does it fit into all this?
Well, Balance Complex is designed to tackle the problems that come with PID and its impact on vaginal health. It's meant to be this comprehensive solution, combining the key elements we've been talking about. Probiotics to restore balance, natural antimicrobials to fight off the bad stuff, and ingredients that support your immune system. The idea is that these things work together to help restore a healthy environment, reduce inflammation,